Hello, it's the Productize Podcast. I'm Brian Castle. Thanks, as always, for tuning in. And hey, if you've been enjoying this podcast for the last few weeks, I'd really appreciate it if you head over to iTunes and leave a 5-star review. Even just the 5 stars is helpful. But if you want to add your thoughts about what you like about the show, what you don't like, I'd appreciate that too. Today I've got a good one. I'm talking to Foti Panagiotakopoulos. Foti is the founder of Growth Mentor. This is an interesting business that is built on the marketplace model, always a very dicey business model to do well because you need two sides. In this case, it's mentors being matched with mentees. So people who are looking for mentorship or just, advice, a second set of eyes to look over your growth campaigns, your marketing, your sales, your business building, and all that kind of fun stuff. He's done a really great job of building up this platform, and he's experimented with pricing quite a bit. We dove into that. We talked about how he balanced not only trying to build the challenging marketplace model, but to do it while still employed at a full-time gig. So some interesting thoughts there. He talked about building a platform while being a non-technical co-founder and all the learnings that go into kind of human behavior behind mentorship and people who are actually motivated to become mentors themselves. There are a lot of human aspects to these, when you look beyond the upfront mechanics of how a business like this really works. So yeah, a lot of really good insights in here from Foti. So yeah, I'll let him take it away. Here's my conversation with Foti Panagiotakopoulos talking about Growth Mentor. Enjoy. All right, I'm here with Foti Panagio. I knew I was going to mess this up, but we're going to keep this on air. Okay, Foti Panagiotakopoulos. How'd I do?
You did really well. That was very good.
Okay, awesome. Well,
good
Foti,
recovery.
Thanks for. Well, thank you for joining me today. I really like the sound of your Greek name here, and that's where you're based today, right?
Yeah, I'm based in Athens, Greece.
Very cool. That's one of those places that's always been on our travel to-do list. And I hope we get there someday. I don't think that's going to happen this year. But.
Yeah, kind of unlikely. But one day you're going to come over. Let me know. Go Uzo. Get you some nice Mythos beers.
Very cool. So you do Growth Mentor, and I've just been clicking around it for a couple of weeks now. I'm fascinated with marketplaces in general, but I think what you've built here is just really unique and interesting. There are quite a few areas of your business here that I haven't really seen done in this way before. So we'll get into sort of the backstory and how things operate at Growth Mentor today. But I mean, how do you kind of explain what you're up to right now?
Sure. So right now I'm running Growth Mentor kind of full time. I still do marketing work for EuroVPS, but with Growth Mentor, what that is, a little bit of an overview. It's a marketplace / platform / community where you can filter and find growth marketing and startup mentors and book calls with them to just get advice on where you're working on. So that's taking up most of my time, and it's very satisfying because it's a human to human job. Like you meet so many cool people, and like when I started it off, I'm like, well, look, if it doesn't really work and I lose all my money, then at least I would have made a really good Rolodex, of network. So like that's yeah. But thankfully it didn't fail, and it's going quite well.
Yeah, very cool. I mean, I love just the ability for anyone to kind of go on the internet and reach out to people who can actually help. I mean, there's been that natural community, especially in like the web industry and startups of people sharing knowledge on things like podcasts and blogs and stuff, and communities where people can connect with one another. But it's still hard. It's still people who know a thing or two, they're usually too busy to make themselves available. But these platforms like Growth Mentor sort of actually facilitate that, which is really cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of tough to do it the organic way. That was one of the big pain points we were trying to solve.
Got it. And it is focused on growth, right? So I guess that has to do with anything related to like marketing and sales and onboarding. Is that right? It's not like mentoring for anything.
It's actually a little bit Well, growth is a word that's been thrown around a lot lately, right? And some people are more like sticklers with its connotations than others. I'm a more liberal in that sense. Like you can kind of mean whatever you want with it, right? Like for me, growth is life, right? If you're not growing, then you're dying, kind of thing. So in a business context, like you might need to talk to somebody at some point to get advice on whether you should go for funding or like continue in a bootstrapped manner. And that's something that I it's a kind of like a thing that you wouldn't really expect to find on a growth marketing platform, like advice on funding, but I think it all ties together.
Yeah, it is one of those terms. It's like it's sort of like there are so many things that are encompassing in it. Like I'm thinking about marketing right now and growth for my process kit product. And there are so many things that go into that. Like if I'm thinking about marketing, a lot of that is even how the product works and the features. That in itself is marketing, and then like doing customer research and all that. So everything's kind of connected.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, product is something that is integral nowadays to kind of optimize for you. You hear the term product led growth being thrown around, but I think that even before like that became so popular, it was the number one focus of all startups. Make sure that you have a product that people actually like and is useful. And I think that the most of the mistakes that I see, at least with founders, begins at that core level. Like, what are you building? Is there really a pain point that you're solving here, or like, are you in love with your solution?
Yeah. And for sure. And the thing that I've always have been drawn to is learning by doing, like learning by just trying things out myself and trying to learn along the way. But then the next best thing, or kind of going hand in hand with that, is learning from other people who have actually done it. Like that's why I'm such a fan of listening to podcasts, of hearing people's actual stories and case studies. And then, of course, being friends with other founders and people who are actually doing things. I learned so much more from the real experiences of experts, or they're just experts because they've done it in the past, right? Rather than like textbooks or more structured courses. The courses that I like are more experience based, and I think that's where something like this really feels like valuable. I get to actually talk to people who've done it.
Yeah, I mean, the difference is that you're even if you're talking to somebody and you're not like executing on the thing, you're still active in the mode of learning versus passive when you're just consuming content and you're not really processing anything. Like this two-way conversation right now, it takes conscious effort of you and I, and through this process of you and I talking about a specific problem, like just the fact that we're verbalizing it out loud, that problem, like your brain is kind of thinking on it, like different parts of it are being energized because you're vocalizing it, which can help with like problem solving as well. So just I think it's also like underappreciated the value of just speaking out loud your problems. And yeah, like even if you don't have somebody like super high level to chat to and bounce ideas, just like any your coworker or whatever, just have a chat. I think it's so therapeutic as well to just vocalize.
Yeah, and even just that term of like bouncing ideas back and forth, like it's sort of a term that gets thrown around, but it's whereas like a course or a blog article is just static. It's like it gives you some instructions, but okay, but how does that actually apply to my situation? That's where talking to someone and then having them ask follow-up questions and figure out, oh, well, in your case, I would do things slightly differently.
Yeah, exactly. But the key is to hit a roadblock before you jump on like a mentorship call. That's at least my advice to a lot of people. It's like force yourself to get stuck, right? And by doing, of course, right? Executing and like do something really hard that challenges you and then get put in this position where you don't know what to do next or maybe you have like three different choices and you're not sure which one's the best and like finding somebody who's done that exact thing and saying, hey, look, like, here's my three ideas. Here's my pros and cons for each one. This is my assumptions, hypothesis. Like, what do you think? Right? Like, those are the best sort of conversations. Not like, hey, I don't know how to do this. Teach me. That's what Google's for and courses.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, I mean, I actually personally have a need like right now that I don't know whether like this could give folks a good sense of maybe what Growth Mentor does or doesn't do. So like I said, with Process Kit, I'm starting to do a little bit more, planning on doing a little bit more like outbound marketing tactics. I've grown the customer base sort of organically up until now, but I want to start doing things like ads, or at least testing certain like ad channels, retargeting, pay per click, things like that. And that's an area that I've never been very good with myself. And so what I would like to find is like, I don't want to like outsource the entire thing, right? Especially in the early days of this. I want to set it up myself and get a few campaigns going and probably make a ton of mistakes and then have a PPC expert come and look at my account and tell me what I'm doing wrong and give me some suggestions. Maybe that's like a one-time session, maybe it's like a couple of calls over a month, but then that's it. It's like a targeted need. Is that the sort of thing that like someone can come onto Growth Mentor for?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's one of the most popular use cases. Literally going over PPC campaigns and just taking a look with screen share. Like jump on a Zoom and be like, "Hey, this is my Facebook Business Manager or my Google Ads backend. These are my campaigns. Like this is how I structured it. My ad sets, this and that. Do you think it's too broad, too specific?" And there's so many mentors on the platform who like have ridiculously more like they have really good experience, like 6-7 figure budgets per month spending on AdWords. Like for this is all they do for like years. And you jump on a call with someone like that, and within even like the first 5 minutes, like you've learned 3-4 things that you can implement immediately that can like save you so much money, like in wasted spend. I mean, that's my personal experience and like from the feedback I get from reviews because it's something that takes a lot of practice to master PPC. And how do you practice with PPC? You spend money. But not everybody has that sort of money to understand the algorithm and how the updated machine learning functionality of Facebook and Google works. Like in what scenarios should you do, automated bidding or go manual? I mean, these are things that take a lot of hands-on experience to master. Yeah. So like as somebody who wants to do it themselves, like that's probably one of the better ways to kind of level up a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are also these like, especially in the early stages of like a startup, even if you have the cash to like, fund, say like hiring like a head of marketing or something like that, it doesn't always make sense to do that in the early days.
Mm-hmm.
It's still better to do it in-house, but get some outside advice along the way,
For sure. And I mean, I think doing things yourself in house is like, I view it as an alternative to funding.
Right. Right. Absolutely. So there are so many things about the structure of Growth Mentor that I want to unpack. I mean, the one thing that really stuck out to me, which I'm interested in here, is actually like the pricing model. Because we've seen, like mentor sites in where you can just basically like hire somebody by the minute. You pay by the minute. But this is like a subscription, like a flat subscription, and then you get access to the platform of mentors. Can you like explain how the pricing works?
Sure. So we've changed the pricing a couple of times, but this is the one that we found works the best. We're probably going to stick with this. But how it works is there's a flat monthly fee, but it's minimum quarterly term. So $50 a month. And with that, you can book unlimited free calls with any mentors listed as free. You can create help requests. So like basically imagine like an Upwork job posting, but for mentorship, like this is my problem. Who wants to help? Apply. And then, yeah, like if you want to book a call with a mentor that charges, like 25% of the mentors charge for their time, then that's extra above the subscription.
Got it. Okay, so of the mentor network, which it's like not anybody can just become a mentor. You have like a vetting process, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and so yeah, it says 75% are free, or meaning like free to members who are paying the monthly service. So what is the difference between like a free mentor and somebody who charges?
That one is charging and one is not. That's literally the only difference. Just because they're free doesn't mean like they're of the lesser tier, because we kind of get that question a lot. Like, so it's free, so the paid ones are better, or like how's that work, right? And no, it's not like that. It's just that at the beginning, when you join as a mentor on Growth Mentor, like we have this thing called like the give first pricing model. So mentors can't charge until they have 3 reviews. So then some of them elect to stay free afterwards. So like we're not forcing anybody to do it. It's just, some of them like really, really enjoy it.
Got it. And I would assume that some mentors use it as like a personal branding thing. Maybe it helps their network.
Yeah, for
meet more
sure.
people.
For sure.
Very cool.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of them put it on their LinkedIn profiles as well, kind of like a badge of honor. I'm a growth mentor. You can find me here, which is kind of funny how that turned out. That wasn't really our idea. It was one of the other mentors put on their LinkedIn. They're like, "Hey guys, we should all like do this," and then everyone did it. So it's like, oh,
Yeah, I love it. And then how does the pricing work for mentors who are charging for their time?
so they can set their rates whatever they want, but to set a rate higher than $99 an hour, so like 100 plus, you have to have 10 reviews for that, and then we take a 15% commission off of any pay calls.
Got it. Okay, very cool. And then like I'm curious about like the mentors, like how much of like the most active mentors, like are there people who are doing multiple calls every single day, or is this the type of thing that a mentor might come in and do some mentor calls like maybe like once a week or a couple times a month?
Yeah, it's more towards the latter.
Like how much time are our mentors actually spending?
So just to put things in perspective, last month, the month of June, the top mentor did 20 calls. Right. The second place mentor did 18 and the third 13. So that's kind of a lot. Like if you think about it, like 20 calls in a month. But I mean, it's not like my wife teaches English online and like she'll do 18 in half a week type of thing. So
Yeah. It's really draining to be a mentor or to do any sort of coaching. I've done some coaching over the years through my productized course for people doing productized services. And I've actually had to like kind of turn it off at times just because I just don't want those extra calls. But when I am doing it, it is really draining to sit there on a call and be really focused on somebody else's business because they're depending on you to listen to every word and to offer really thoughtful advice. It's like more than I would say it's more energy than just a typical call or a typical work task to be a mentor.
yeah, I mean it. I can see that. But here's one more like thing to throw into the equation that these mentors are kind of doing this pro bono for the most part. So when you do it pro bono, it kind of takes the edge off because like they're not really paying you like that much. They're not paying you anything really. So like it's much more casual, the chats, right? So like you jump on a call, you can spend like 5-10 minutes before the call to review. Some mentors do a lot more than that. They'll like prepare some Google Docs with like an analysis before and after, but there's absolutely no expectations on that.
Very cool. So there are other like components that I'm seeing here on Growth Mentor, and maybe we'll sort of like uncover these as we go back into your story of how these different things came up. But like just to kind of touch on them real quick. I mean, I noticed that by the way, you have a beautiful website. It's really well done, and the copy just is really well done.
Thanks. Shout out to Alec, my product designer.
Very cool. Yeah. And so like under like the platform, I'm seeing things like you can search through the curated mentors. There's a section on hiring an expert. So I guess in some cases people don't want to just talk. They actually want to hire someone. And it looks like you do some like matching of
Yeah,
hiring.
exactly. Yeah.
I also saw this like growth audit, which is interesting as well. I want to hear a little bit more about that. Like it seems like it's like a one-time sort of engagement or something.
Yeah, it's one time audit, but the difference between this audit and like an audit that you might buy at a digital agency is that you're going to get a different auditor for different components of the audit that is a specialist just in that, right? So like one person that's PPC is their jam. They're going to audit your performance marketing channels, see if there's any low lying fruit. And then for your content audit, that's going to be somebody that focuses exclusively on content, that's got a lot of experience in a role like that. So at the end, like the audits get compiled together, and then you have a more like impartial, I guess you can say like view, because there's multiple different perspectives, and then it's up to you to kind of connect the dots and see if you can kind of massage that into a growth strategy of some sorts.
Very nice. And so is that like a one-time service that's available to anyone, or you already have to be a Growth Mentor member?
No, anybody could purchase that. Although to be honest with you, like we haven't promoted that at all. It's just like this landing page that's kind of been sitting there. Every once in a while, I'll get a lead through that form. But
Very cool. So yeah, I mean, why don't we go back and see how all this sort of came together? So, how long has Growth Mentor been out as a business?
we officially opened September 4th, 2018. So closing up on 2 years.
Very nice. What were you doing before that?
head of growth at eurovps.com. So that's a managed hosting provider selling managed VPS, cloud servers, dedicated servers. Yeah, so I was running marketing there for around a decade.
Wow, very cool. And you're still working there?
Yep, yep, yeah.
Wow. So you're kind of like balancing this and both. I'm curious, like what led you to you were there for 10 years and then you launched this. Like what led you to it was just time to kind of do your own thing.
It's just it was a challenge that I was personally facing at EuroVPS, not really having that many people to bounce ideas off of at a high level, and I would kind of drive people crazy talking about the stuff that they didn't want to hear if they weren't interested, like my engineers. So it was a very tech dominated startup, right? Everyone was technical except for me. So I would start booking calls with people on Upwork to just chat about things I was working on because I didn't necessarily want to hire out for them. But I did want to double check my work. And then I realized that this helped me break through learning plateaus really quickly as compared to taking courses and reading copious amounts of blog posts. And I'm like, hey, like something like this doesn't really exist that's affordable for normal startups or not Series A funded $1 million in the bank type situations. Because there was I guess Clarity FM was the only thing out there at that point. So yeah, that sort of gave me the idea something like this should exist.
Very cool. So you were actually going on Upwork and just finding experts who are, charging some hourly rate for, say, like PPC ads. And
Yeah.
instead of like hiring them to do your ads, you just wanted to hire them for a call to talk about what you're working on.
Yeah, exactly. And they were cool with it because it was easier. They didn't have to do anything.
Yeah.
They just have to show up.
That's very cool. So that was the idea. I mean, what were your first steps to making this happen?
The first step, like when I got serious about it, because I kind of sat on that idea for like a year and a half before I actually did anything. First step was just pull out a piece of A4 paper, pencil, and make the first wireframe. I'm a big believer that you have to visualize things to manifest them. And for me, that the best way is just to have that mind-body connection and do it on paper. And I made the first wireframe over there. I scribbled some notes about a go-to-market strategy, like 2, 3 different variations of potential business models, like monthly, per call, like a couple different things. And then the next step after that, was just make a landing page.
That's awesome. I mean, the marketplace model always scares the hell out of me. Like I have a whole list of like shiny object business ideas that most of them I won't get to. But whenever one is like related to like a marketplace where I need two sides, I'm like, okay, it's a cool idea, but there's no way I could launch a marketplace. Did that thought enter your mind as you were thinking about the idea of like, all right, well, it's only valuable if we find enough mentors, but it's only valuable to the mentors if we find enough people who need mentorship. So like, how'd you think about that early on?
I mean, first of all, I read every good article I could about marketplaces. Like I spent like 3 days. I had, my iPad and I was just consuming everything, trying to educate myself on the pitfalls and of what mistakes you could make. And, everyone was crying about this whole chicken versus the egg thing. But like, I felt like I had a secret that nobody else did. And that's that growth people love talking about growth. And I knew that innately because I had a lot of conversations with people, and like me personally, like I love talking to people about giving them advice on how like I can potentially, I don't know, like basically like just helping people out with the startup stuff, right? Growth, marketing, because there's so many mistakes you can make, and there's no wrong or right answer as well. So it can get pretty fun. So I added that in addition with like this notion that the supply side would also kind of double down as a natural sort of influencer built-in marketplace because these are marketers who all are going to have their own networks, and it's not like a Uber or something where the supply side doesn't really bring any network effects innately. So like this had native network effects built in just due to the nature of the marketplace.
And so what you mean is like the mentors can join, and it's also a way for them to like promote to their existing networks, like, hey, you could come talk to me over on Growth Mentor.
Yeah, exactly. And the idea was that if I make a curated platform and it's really difficult to get in, then the mentors are going to be proud that they're in because hey, like it's 3-4% acceptance rate. And then it's going to be like a badge in a sense, like, what you're talking about kind of thing. So
It's still pretty daunting to me though. Like if you're starting from just an idea scribbled on pads and things like that and wireframes, was the first step to go to the supply side and try to like personally invite mentors?
no, the first step was to validate that this was even like an idea worth chasing. And that was with the landing page and playing with demand side, right? So like I asked my designer to create like the best looking pre-launch landing page he could make with user interface of the dashboard, even though we hadn't even like found who the developer was going to be, like totally like, gaslighting in a sense. I don't know if that's the right word, probably wrong, but like it just came to my head. But yeah, no, that's totally the wrong word. Yeah. So we made that landing page and I pushed like $500 of Google ad traffic to it with like business mentor keywords, yeah, I got like a $5 cost per lead. And then probably 20-30% of them filled in the type form that was at the end of like with the auto email responder they get when they fill in the form. And I asked them questions like, what's your biggest pain point in growth right now? Like, do you have a mentor? How much would you be willing to pay for one? And would you like a free mentor matching call? Right. So like, I would then jump on calls with these people and interview them and really try and understand like what their challenges are and if they get what their biggest pain point is. And I kind of isolated through these calls that the number one commonality behind all these people is like this notion that they were lonely, like they didn't have anyone to talk to without feeling like they're annoying them. That's when I was like, all right, well, let's play with this, and then I adjusted the copy on the landing page even more and it converted even higher. And then I shared it a little bit on some communities, like low lying fruit kind of thing, like indie hackers. And I got a lot more signups then. And so what I would do though, as well for the supply side, because that's just talking about demand, is I would reach out like one-to-one outbound to mentors. Like they were at that point, they were mentors, but like people that I felt could be a good fit for early adopters. And I would send them an email and say, here's a link to my Envision app. Obviously, like there would be other words in there as well, but the hook was that I had a clickable prototype that they could check out. And I would give them that Envision app link. And by that point, we had already created high fidelity mockups of every single screen on the app and put it in Envision. So it's different if you go to the supply side and you have nothing but just an idea. But if you go to them and you're like, look, here's the actual like clickable prototype, it's being built and I can get you in on the platform before we launch if you're interested. Let's talk. Right. So like I got all the early adopters that way, which was really cool because I got user testing. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. And by the way, for folks listening, Envision app is fantastic. I've used it many times. It's basically like it's like a wireframing app where you can create mockups, but it's really easy to share with other people, and you can make them interactive and click through screens and things without actually building the app. So that's really cool. So it actually does make a lot of sense to sort of validate the demand side with the landing page. You run some Google ads to it, prove that you can, first of all, just attract people at all. And then second of all, that those people are actually willing to fill out a form and then get on calls with you. That shows that the demand is real and you understood what that demand is. And then the next step of going to the supply side and inviting them. So you showed the potential first beta group of mentors like the Envision app, and they could see what the interface looks like. Did you feel like it was necessary to say, hey, and I also have leads ready to go? Like people
Never had that feeling like throughout the entire process. Like they weren't really asking about that. They saw the job, then they were like, oh shit, this is really impressive. And like they never even really thought to, because they like the idea, the concept behind it. So they wanted to be on board with that.
Oh, that's cool. And like you said, like these are the type of people who just like to be involved in this sort of thing.
Exactly. Yeah. So some of the people that I were reaching out to is people that had, I don't know, for anyone who's familiar with indie hackers, they have this section on their site. Awesome community, by the way. And they can post your story, your startup stories. And I was reading through those stories and thinking, so the thought came to my head, like, well, if they're willing to share their story and write up this long thing, take an hour or two out of their day to write this and share with the community, they probably are of the personality type that would be ideal for growth mentor. Like they want to kind of share and help the community and give back. And that was the first sort of pool of people that I reached out to.
It's really smart. And what was the very first pricing model that you had in mind?
The first pricing model was pure play commission. So it was free to sign up, and then you had to pay for the calls. And yeah, that flopped completely.
Is that like pretty similar to kind of Clarity
Clarity,
FM?
yeah, it's the same exact concept. So that did we got a lot of signups, top of funnel, but they weren't booking calls. So
So like they would create a free account, they would browse people, but they would never actually like book something.
yeah, that was that only lasted for like 1 month, and then afterwards we added friction to the top of funnel. So in order for them to even be able to see the sign up page, they had to fill in a type form and answer a bunch of questions because like I wanted to know who these people were and like what's going on, right? Like no one's doing anything.
Mm-hmm. Then how did that work out as you added like more steps to get onto the site?
As I added more steps, it made them feel like it was more of a personalized, like tailored solution. And they wanted that connection, right? Because they didn't know who to choose. And when you reach out to people and you have a chat, it's just so much easier to understand like what they're thinking and for them to understand you as well. And I did a lot of one-on-one calls with these early sort of signups. And after that call, like some of them would book little calls here and there, but still nothing dramatic uptick in engagement and bookings. But the big like takeaway is that they weren't sure because they didn't know who these people were and they wish they could have a free call like to test it, right? And so then we coded in the ability for the mentors to put their rate to zero, and we were super surprised to see like most of the mentors just go free. And then that's when we saw like a hockey stick uptick in calls being booked. And yeah,
Huh. So once mentors started offering the free option, and back then you didn't have this new structure where it's like every mentor starts free and then they unlock the
exactly, yeah.
ability to.
And there was no subscription back then either.
Right, right. Just a minute to tell you about Process Kit. If your operation needs to become more efficient and more predictable so that your team never lets anything fall through the cracks, then it's time to implement Process Kit. Process Kit is process-driven project management software made for powering client services businesses. It's especially designed with productized services in mind. Create powerful SOPs with built-in if this then that automations, and then use those processes to power all of your repeatable projects. Whether you're managing a pipeline of new clients onboarding to your service, or tracking weekly deliverables, sales proposals, marketing assets, or admin work, Process Kit is your team's place for getting it all done. But more importantly, done right. Use our powerful Zapier integration to hook Process Kit into all of your other systems. And if you'd like expert help with improving your processes and automations, ask about our Process Kit Implementer service. Request your free demo and trial at processkit.com. Before I get into how you made those turns, I want to sort of take a pause here to ask you about like just your situation at that time. You're starting this, you're showing these wireframes, you're doing these, lead gen tests, you're talking to users, but you have a full-time job. Like how did you balance that, and how do you continue to balance that? But especially in those early days, what did your daily schedule look like?
Yeah, I mean, that's really hard. I think it's impossible to be elite at two different job roles at the same time. So you have to choose which one we're gonna, I guess, put the extra effort on. Because I knew I had to choose growth mentor at that point. I made sure while the product was being built and developed, I had some time where I didn't really have to do any. Like it took 6 months. Some backstory. It took 6 months for the application to be developed. I'm a non-technical founder. Like I know enough, but like not enough to build a Ruby on Rails, two-sided marketplace. So I delegated the build to an agency in Poland. And yeah, during that time that like I didn't really have to do that much, I made sure to build a lot of. I tried to make myself redundant at EuroVPS and ruthlessly prioritize and delegate things that were just not really that important for me to be doing anymore. And when it did come time to having to spend a lot more time on growth mentor, like what works for me is just blocking off an entire day just for one of the projects, like for Euro VPS on Fridays. the only thing I'll work on. And, I mean, you'll be surprised how much you can do in one day if you're super focused.
For sure, for sure. And so you did decide to outsource the building, you said, to a development agency. I'm curious, like at what point did you decide, like, yes, I'm ready to pull the trigger and spend a bunch of money on this agency? Like, was it after you proved that you had these leads coming in from your first tests? Like, what gave you that confidence to go forward with that?
Yeah, it was after the user conversations, and after I saw the work that Alec was putting out, the user interfaces, because I would give him the wireframes on a Google Doc of like every single screen, and from a Google Doc, he would take it and turn it into essentially exactly what you see right now. Nothing's really changed in terms of the user interface design in over to 2.5 years since the first designs were sketched in Sketch. So yeah, like seeing it really is motivating you, and it's like, oh shit, like this could actually happen if I just pony up the money and put it all here, all chips on blue, on black.
Awesome. And then I maybe like fast forwarding, but like what does the rest of your team look like right now or over the past 2 years? Like aside from you talking to all these different users, like who else is involved in running this?
There's Jessica, my co-founder, and she's been incredible. I definitely would not have been able to do it without her. She manages all operations. She does the social media, and she's the glue, that sticks the community together. I mean, if you want to make a platform, I think it's important to have a community person. Like if you don't have that ability yourself innately, find somebody that can, either a co-founder or a freelancer or somebody, but that's a really important role. And so that is that. The development team, that, as I said, yeah, like that was outsourced, but it's really cool though. We have our weekly scrum meetings, and we meet up. I flew to Poland once to meet the team, so we have a really good relationship. And lately I've been dabbling in apprentices, so I have 3 apprentices that I'm currently training up right now, and that's going really, really well.
What's involved in that? Like what are you having them do and what's in it for them?
So what's in it for them is they learn directly from me, and my goal is, and I told this to them up front, like I want to basically clone myself onto you, or at least in the sections that you want to excel at. So I talked to them first in the beginning. I'm like, so what are your goals? Like, what do you want to accomplish out of this? And I think that's so key to do if you work with interns or apprentices, is to really spend the time to understand what they want out of it, and not just think about what jobs you want to get done with it, right? Because like one of the apprentices is really good at content, but she also shines at PR and all that. So like I get it. Like the obvious thing is manage a team of writers and do some editing, but I think that there's other things as well that she could pick up really easy. So I'm teaching her CRO, for example, and landing page design by starting with the wireframes, teaching her how to use Balsamic. So the goal is, and I'm pretty much almost there, where I can basically come to her and say, look, this is the campaign. This is the general target persona, the audience we're going for. And can you please make a wireframe? Here's the designer, send it over. And then, you pretty much have an on bounce landing page ready to go. So there's a lot of potential in training people up that have that passion and the mindset to learn. I think that's much more important than like, all right, like what experience do you have already? Because a lot of this stuff you can learn. Like it's not rock. None of this stuff is really rocket science. It just takes the experience.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is sort of just hunger to learn. I mean, there's always going to be like some raw talent. Like I want to say talent, but it's not exactly experience. It's like they just have the technical or creative, talent there, but a hunger to actually turn this into a career. And so
Yeah.
that's where you can get some really excellent work done. So I want to kind of jump back to how you sort of evolved, especially through the first year. So you did a few different experiments with pricing. You allowed mentors to move to offering their mentorship for free, which helped things. And so I guess when you made that change, that also triggered people doing free calls and then converting to paid calls.
Sometimes yes, but most of the times no. Most of the times they converted to free, and then they just stayed free, but they lowered their availability so that they have maybe like one weekly 30-minute slot a week or 1 hour a week to kind of throttle it.
So like as a business, like what was the first kind of milestone or marker where it was like, okay, this can actually start to make money now?
Yeah, definitely when we added the subscription, the gate. That was in March 2019. So we had just come back from San Francisco. We went to Startup Grind to exhibit at their startup conference. I don't know what we were thinking going over there, but it was just, I guess, interesting to see it. But
Just a quick side note. To
sure,
me, it's like it's so weird to hear people talk about these experiences of like flying to places and and traveling to conferences.
yeah,
Like we're at a point now in July 2020 where like that seems like so long.
yeah. We're in a brave new world right now. It's completely insane. So yeah, when we came back, like yeah, we decided that either we were going to have to raise money from investors, or we were going to find a way to make this like pay itself off. Because at that point, like I was deep in debt, and I had put all my life savings into the company, and it was making maybe, I think it was making like $50 a month in commission by that point, because 90% of the calls being booked were of the free variety. So like there's no commission on free. So it's like shit, like there's people are getting a lot of value out of this. I think they pay $99 a year to get access to this. So like, yeah, let's try it. So we put $99 per year as the first price, and every 3 months we'd raise it by a bit. First, then it was to 120, then 180, then 200, and then we tried monthly in October of 2019, and the conversion rate went up, but the churn rate went down, and the net revenue went down as well, because you were dealing with 1 month over, the 12 month prepayment, which really hurt liquidity.
Oh, I see. So the first version of the subscriptions
It's
was an
yearly. It
annual
was
plan
annual.
only.
Yeah. And then we went to monthly, but $35 a month. So, theoretically, like your MRR is going to increase a lot. Like, which it did, right? Like that was pretty good. But then it just wasn't really sustainable, because our dev bills were higher than revenue. So we transitioned back again to like annual only. And then the biggest sort of failure, like product failure, and I've never told anyone about this yet because it's such a fresh mistake, was when I tried to build a freemium model with Growth Mentor. So that was so it was summertime 2019. So literally a year ago, I was reading Wes Bush's book, Product Led Growth. Wes Bush is a mentor on a platform and really, really awesome guy. And I thought it really made sense, the arguments he was saying in favor of freemium, but he also was very, very responsible to say that it's a very dangerous pricing mechanism as well, right? Because like if you don't align it properly, like you're gonna get hurt. And it's I was viewing it like as if I was a SaaS company, but it's really not. It's a marketplace for human capital at the end of the day. Like it didn't work. People were signing up for free, and the concept was that you sign up for a free account, and then you can only book calls with paid mentors. And then if you wanted to book a call with a free mentor, a modal paywall would pop up and say, hey, free mentors you can only book with a subscription. Upgrade here. But the conversion rate from free user to paid like was really bad, and we were actually making less conversions than we were before doing the switch. And like the annoying part really is that I spent 6 months of not six, like 5 months of dev time working to make that pivot to go to freemium. Because I had to refactor all of the back end with Stripe, how the payments work. And okay, great. Like during that time, we did a lot of technical debt cleanup, because there were certain things that definitely needed to rebuild in the back end. But like that was completely unnecessary.
Yeah, it's so hard. Like, people, especially like growth people, love to say, "Oh, you should try this or that pricing change, or
Yeah.
freemium this or that." But like, it does get complicated with the billing. It's not like an easy switch that you could flip.
Yeah, exactly. It's very complex, and it's a big change to make. So you want to be sure.
That makes sense. That the freemium. I mean, for free, you can't really talk to any of the free mentors, but you still have to pay for the paid mentors. Yeah, I mean, I could see how the alignment, especially for this sort of service, and like I get the question sometimes about productized services. About offering like a free sample, or I mean, like a free service, a portion of the service for free. And that's always tough because it's people at the end of the day. It's people spending time to deliver services. In this case, it's mentorship, and it's there has to be some sort of transaction somewhere.
For sure, for sure. And for us, that transaction, the benefit it creates to the community is the qualification from the demand side. It's okay, fair. Like I'm qualifying and vetting the supply side, but I think one of the best qualifiers at the end of the day is the dollar bill, right? Like if you're going to pay a certain, even if it's a small amount, like the difference between like 0 and 1 is huge. So anything like it's like, all right, these people are serious about it all, about the mentorship, and they're not going to just be tire kickers. Because with the freemium, we did attract like a lot of people that were kind of spamming and wasting people's time.
Yeah. So we'll wrap up here in just a second. One more quick question about the pricing. So currently, it's still a monthly subscription, but you do require the first quarter, like a minimum of 3 months. Is that right?
Yeah, correct. It's 3 months at minimum.
And when did you make that switch?
Uh, I think February 2020.
Okay, just a few months ago.
Yeah, yeah.
And that was to sort of like, I guess, increase the customer lifetime a little bit.
Yeah, it was a bit of that, but it was also a play to kind of attract people that are going to have the right mindset around it, and not view Growth Mentor as a silver bullet. Like I'm going to sign up for $50 for 1 month, book like 6 calls, and expect all my life's problems to be solved. Because you get that. Like I noticed a bit of that with the people that signed up with monthly. They would want to just max it out for that first month, and then like that's their intention going in, to just cancel it the next month. I don't know. It's because it's a long-term process, right? Like mentorship, and you're not going to get the return like in a short time. Like you need to keep it up and follow up as well.
Sure. So I mean, like we covered a lot of the pieces of it. I'm sure there's more to it. Like so, there's like the hiring of the expert. You have the growth audits and everything. I'm curious, like here in 2020, looking ahead the rest of this year into next year, like what are sort of the levers that you're currently focused on, or areas that you want to improve, or what's sort of next on your roadmap for Growth Mentor?
Yeah, yeah. The next thing that we really want to do is focus on building community within the platform, and I know that word is like thrown around a lot, but like community within the product itself and not offloaded onto the Slack. So right now, all of the mentees and the mentors are on a Slack channel together, and that's where the like sort of engagement, the I guess grassroots community engagement happens. But we're thinking about building like an activity feed as the next feature on the platform, and creating mentee profile pages as well, and the ability for mentees to book calls with other mentees as well, because you can learn a lot from. I mean, I've had some calls where the mentee was like teaching me by the end of it, and it was like, whoa, I thought like you wanted help from me. So there's a lot of potential in like cross pollination, and that's what I want to explore. Like how to like take that network effects to the next.
That makes so much sense, man. Because I mean, on a couple different levels. First of all, having the community and all the mentors in the community like active, that just it like adds more value to becoming a paid member, because not only can you do calls, but you can join this community. But then within the community, within the chat and the activity, you could learn more about the mentors and see who you want to actually talk to based on what they're chatting about in the activity. Like the other piece though is, like you said, mentees talking to other mentees. I mean, I see this in the productized community. One of the more popular aspects of that has been matching people up into their own mastermind groups. So like people love to learn together, or hold each other accountable as they're all sort of following a similar path. Yeah.
Yeah, we're currently beta testing that, but in a very like totally ad hoc kind of way. We just have a Zoom meetup, and we split people up into different color groups, like the blue group, the purple group, and it's usually like 4 mentees and like 2 mentors, and it's just a once a week sort of accountability meetup, and just kind of chat. So no, that's kind of cool. But I noticed that we've been running this for like 6 weeks, and after the first month, you get a lot of drop off. Like people are like, "Yeah, I'm going to come every week," right? And it's kind of like the gym. A lot of this is like the gym, right? You have the best intentions, but then like life happens.
Yeah. I mean, that's the classic thing with any sort of forum, or even like comments on a blog. Like, 95% of people they're tuning in, but they're lurking. There's only 5% who actually, post something.
For sure, for sure. And you want to be able to add some passive value as well when you're in a community, rather than, because like I say, like the active value is like me booking a call with you, right? Like I actually literally have to choose you, say what I want and all of that. But like passive is things coming to you. Like imagine like a guy ringing the doorbell and be like, hey, it's time to go to the gym. You haven't been in like 3 days. What are you doing?
Yeah, exactly. I probably need that myself. Cool. So Foti, thanks for doing this. Obviously, growthmentor.com is where you can check out the site. Again, for folks just wanting to see how a really well done marketing site and copy is done, I highly recommend just checking that out because I think it does a really good job. Where else can people connect with you?
LinkedIn, you can find me there, and Twitter. I'm not really that active there, but you can find me there. Or just send me an email at foti@growthmentor.com.
Awesome. Well, thanks for doing it.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me.
All right. Did that give you something to think about? If it did, let me know on Twitter. I'm at CastJam. If you want to find show notes on this or any of the other episodes, or my weekly newsletter with new content, head over to productizeandscale.com. Now, if you haven't already, a 5-star review in iTunes, that would go a long way to helping other folks find the show. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next time.